Hello, John. Thank you for coming back to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
All right, so just to remind the audience, in the description, there's a link that will allow you to get to John's website to sign up for periodicals and also sign up for a reading if you would like. We'll talk about that throughout this broadcast, but please click that link and that will take you to his website. In addition, we'll be taking questions, so type them in the chat, or you can also listen to the show on X Spaces. I'll be posting the link and you can ask for the mic and you'll be live on the show asking your questions and hopefully it'll be more interactive. We like these shows to be interactive with the audience. So, oh, further note, please make sure you subscribe and click the like button so we can grow this show here. So, John, take it away.
Well, also one thing I want to also add, this is a fundraising time for me. And so all you who are watching, I have a little thing. If you donate $5 or a little more to that link on to Hogue Prophecy, I will give you a one-time complete full Hogue Prophecy report, the most recent one that's been published, the one that's been quite the rage among my readers. And it's the March into April 8 articles about what's going on in the war and what could happen in the next few years and all of that, which we're going to touch upon a bit here. So, yeah, just be sure to come down. And what you need to do is just so that I know it's you, is write down Paul. That's the code name, Paul, to get Paul to get your special one-time edition, and uh, and I hope you do.
Okay, so John, we had a big event that took place yesterday. Do you want to talk about any of that?
Which one?
Oh,
Oh, that
yeah, yeah.
that
Right.
that Keystone Cops. Uh, yeah, I used to work in security, and even just as a basic security guard, not FBI or anything like that. I saw so many things that were wrong in that whole scene where this guy just runs through, and two guys are got their backs to the hall. Two guys are having jawing some conversation, and then one guy by accident, probably not by any of his intelligence, was actually looking kind of towards the area, and it was almost like, remember that scene in Monty Python the Holy Grail where there's two guards at the door of the castle, and then you see Lancelot running, and then he's there and he's coming closer, and they're still not quite noticing him that well, and yeah, he's getting closer. And then suddenly he comes through, kills one of the guards, and the other guard goes, "What?" Like that. It was, and then today, all the other things that were wrong, like a lot of people that were there, a lot of the press were there. They weren't checking things. It was really lax security. It was, it was a slop match. And again, is this just a coincidence or is it a pattern? I mean, it's Baylor all over again. For any of you wondering what I'm babbling about, what happened if you didn't know is it was the press corps' annual celebration, and this was the first time Trump ever attended it with Melania and the vice president. Now, here's another kind of stupid thing. The whole government, the whole cabinet was in one place. What would have happened if somebody walked in there with a big bomb strapped to them and blown up half the government? I mean, it's usually you don't have the vice president and the president at the same place, as well as the Speaker of the House. That's the rule. They're the three main people in some events, like for instance the State of the Union speech. Usually, the Speaker of the House stays back, and the president and the vice president are there just in case some terrible thing happened to wipe out the whole Congress, and the Speaker of House would then become the president. They weren't even, this is another example of how the Trump administration and the Congress at this time don't follow constitutional law. We have a lawless government. They had them all there. And about the only person that seemed to have any attention to what was happening was Melania. She suddenly looked like a hawk. And here's poor Donald. He was just kind of going, hmm, looking over to her. And then when the guards came, he was kind of, and they took him. He wasn't really looked like he was very dull. He fell down and they had to pick him up. After they took the vice president out with the team first. So they didn't even take the president out of danger first. They took the vice president. I don't know if that's just a wicked joke or somebody that they find more non-campus, well, cognitively undeclining. So that was a travesty of security. So that just shows that even even the president's Secret Service are just it's kind of unraveling into a goofball Keystone Cop show. So yeah, I wonder because it was so Baylor, it was just so Baylor all over again when Trump was shot at and got his ear clipped, and one person died, and one person was seriously wounded. There were all kinds of things that were wrong about that. So. Um, And I can take this theme to another variation, which when I saw the photos from cell phones on U.S. Navy ships in their cantinas, I thought maybe this was a joke. They were showing how much food they were giving
Uh,
the crews. Just basically 1,400 calories. And so this is not enough to go running up and down gangways and running back and forth in a ship, and if anybody knows the Navy and been in the Navy, it's one of the perks of being in the Navy, volunteering to be in the Navy, that they always have great food. The chow is great. And I can't think of anything that would demoralize a crew more other than the toilet problem that they were having on the carrier that would make the morale pretty sour. And so if this is, and it's happening because, as I said, there are not enough. I've said a few shows ago that there are not enough transports that are sending supplies to what the decision was when they're not getting enough people in the Navy to crew the whole Navy. They decide, oh, we'll just crew the warships that shoot something, and we'll just mothball a whole lot of the transport ships. Now, here they are on the other side of the world, not getting enough food or supplies. I mean, this lull, they were mainly using this lull to supply everything again from a lot smaller logistics fleet, having to go many days. And this is just our system. What we're seeing is the United States, the biggest existential revelation of this is the United States is not really that big a superpower anymore. Already, it's really it's slovenly. It's not able to do the work. The signs of this were happening when all the U.S. weapons that were sent to Ukraine were showing how bad they were on the battlefield. How it got to a point where the Russians, Medvedev, and primarily the Secretary of the Supreme Council, and probably Putin's replacement. He was saying about all the Abrams tanks and all the German Leopard tanks. He said, "Please send your tanks, send more of them. They really make good bonfires." And they did. They just blow up and flame out. And so we have been hiding these problems for decades. And it's easy to go after tribal people up in the mountains of Afghanistan and look pretty impressive. But even they remained, and we left after 20 years. The Taliban won. And then you see the Houthi, who are even more extreme climate and stuff. And the U.S. Navy was defeated by them. We just called victory and got out of the Red Sea, but we did not defeat them. We can't even defeat the Houthi. Um, we put a blockade, quote unquote blockade, that has our ships stretched so far away, like 800 kilometers, 500 kilometers away from just out there. If they get lucky, that they might grab some ship. And it's like, and now maybe 35 to 40 ships are getting out without any hassling from the U.S. Navy because they don't dare move any closer because Iranian missiles will sink them. So, this is what the world is watching, and it will forever change the way the world looks at military might of the United States. They're seeing that we are the paper tiger. We are the paper tiger now. And so, which, I always look at things alchemically. How's this base metal revelation going to be an improvement for us? Well, um, it ultimately will be a good thing. It's another sign that, hey, stop playing the super hegemon. You aren't that anymore. Come back home and take care of your people. Stop going and doing all these wars and pretending like you dominate the world. You do not. Now, um, what this what I have been looking at a lot is this lull going to continue? A lot of my sources think not. Um, Daniel Davis, Colonel McGregor, um, and one I haven't talked a lot about, but he's kind of rare even amongst the alternative media. It's Brian Beletic. He does something that even these accurate people that I study and watch over the decades don't do. Um, it's not a nice task. He actually reads all the think tank essays and reports. He literally is going into the circles of the overlords and reading their plans, which they publish because they think nobody's going to read these. And in these plans are some very interesting theories that Brian was talking to Nima Al-Khorshid, who's an Iranian expatriate who lives in, I think, Sao Paulo, Brazil. And um, it actually, in a nutshell, comprises what I have intuitively felt has been happening and already been writing about for a few years as this world war that we're in has been going on, which, by the way, is since February 2022. It's people are coming around now to realize that this is a world war. It's natural, it happens. It took people 2 years and 3 months to call World War II World War II. It took the Pearl Harbor attack that brought in the Japanese and Hitler and fighting the United States. But frankly, I would actually say that World War II started in the mid 30s, mid to late 1930s. It's very violent prelude was the Spanish Civil War, where the fascists and the Soviets were on the Republican side, and the fascist Italians and Germans were on the Franco-fascist side of the Spanish Civil War. And it was a testing ground for a lot of the weapons and strategies that would be used not too many years later in Europe and from the time of the invasion of Poland on. But a year after the Spanish Civil War began in 1936, a major event happened, which I think really, if you don't think Spanish Civil War was bad enough, I think this should have been the official beginning of World War II, when the Imperial Japanese Army and Navy invaded China. It was a massive invasion and one of the largest and bloodiest theaters of World War II that doesn't get a lot of attention in the West, probably because of Asian bias, historical bias. But that started in 1937. So, as far as I'm concerned, World War II started in Spain and in a major way across China. And then a few years later, the Central European front opened up with the Polish people being invaded by Nazi Germany, which then had a 6 month respite. And then the Battle of France in 1940, May and June, which then notice how they're getting more close together now. And then immediately followed by the Battle of Britain, a little demonstration that Germany did not to invade Britain. They weren't going to do that. They just thought that they might get. Hitler it was always an Anglophobe, not an Anglophile. He loved the English and the English culture. He considered them cousin Aryans, and he was very shocked when the war started that the English joined the French in fighting it against them. And he used to say in his secret conversations, which were all quoted and recorded, uh, he said it's a real sorry thing because no matter what happens, he loved the whole concept of the British Empire. He said, "I want the British to rule the oceans. We'll rule Eurasia. Our empire is a land empire. Theirs is a sea empire." And he said, if we lose or win this war, Germany, one thing is certain. This will be the beginning of the end of the British Empire, and it's too bad. So um, that was one of his often prescient moments. He was actually more accurate in his prophecies than Edgar Casey, sadly to say, and documented. Um, I have been thinking of writing a book about these. But anyway, so this whole what's happening in parallel in this Third World War is, I started being one of the few voices saying, no, the February 2022 is the beginning of World War III. And I kind of felt like what it must have been like to be people seeing Shanghai or the Shanghai attack of the Japanese or the Spanish Civil War, or closer even the invasion of Poland by the Nazi Germany as the beginning of some world war. But now I'm seeing even amongst my sources in the media and the alternative media, they're starting to really start thinking like Brian Berletic was, and others. Daniel Davis also was thinking about this yesterday, this is now a world war for sure, with this attack of the United States against Iran. And in a way, in this world war, it's parallel to Hitler invading the Soviet Union. It's as significant as that. And that was around that period that people started thinking of this as a world war, because Iran is rapidly becoming the fourth world power through this war. Um, and so I've already been writing about it, but it was great to see that Brian Berletic was putting out a lot more things in my May Hogue Prophecy Report. Latter half of May will have this essay in it. If not, it will be in my new Substack page when it is up. But it's like defining what I have often said, that this is a war that the American hegemon, I'll call this, being rapidly threatened with rapid decline because of a couple factors. The US dollar is the linchpin of our power, not our guns and weapons, but the linchpin of our ability to deficit spend ourselves into $34 trillion debt with a $1 trillion interest rate every year. Very indicative of what happened to the Spanish Empire in Nostradamus's day. It actually marked the beginning of the end of the Spanish Empire towards the end of the 1500s, from the kind of deficit spending that we are doing. Well, things are happening much faster now. I mean, Rome took a half a millennium to collapse, but a lot of empires, when their collapse comes, it's very rapid. The Soviet Union was declining, and then by the time they had just a little conflict in Afghanistan, trying to occupy Afghanistan. It was enough to really bust the Soviet Union and make it implode by 1991 and turn into the Russian Federation and implode completely. Break up, large parts of it left the Soviet Union, become independent states like Ukraine and Kazakhstan, and so that was a very rapid collapse of the empire that was the Second World, the Soviet bloc. Um, the other empires that come to mind that went fast was Austro-Hungarian Empire in World War One. It was gone in 4 years of fighting. It imploded and broke apart. The very young German Empire that started in 1870, end of 1870, I believe, maybe early 71. I can't remember exactly when they were in the Hall of Mirrors. I've been in the Hall of Mirrors in the Tuileries. It's quite amazing because this is where the peace treaty of Versailles, I mean Versailles, um, and the German Empire also was destroyed in 4 years by World War One. The new empire that was the biggest German empire in history, Hitler's Großdeutsches Reich, it lasted 5 years and maybe 7 months. The Imperial Japanese Empire basically collapsed in 3 years of World War II. And so I'm thinking that, uh, and this is going to sound crazy. I agree with Berlet. It sounds crazy, but it's what the think tanks are doing, and I gotta wonder. Now I'm wondering if there's going to be some kind of make a show and butt out because Trump desperately wants to get us out of there because now he's really in a now where the Iranians were doing they were in command of escalating the war. Now, as they're sitting there, they're in command, have the escalatory advantage of doing nothing. They're just sitting there, also replenishing their needs and starting to rebuild things that the Americans blew up and the Israelis blew up. And so um, they're just, their waiting is a weapon because Trump can't stay there. He's lost in everything. And now what's happening is all the impacts around the world of all this disruption of the Persian Gulf, oil, gas, and its byproducts were used for making plastics and especially the big byproduct for fertilizer, urea, and other things that are literally there's a chance that 20 to 30% of the materials needed to grow crops and keep the green revolution going. Well, the green revolution with a drop of 30% is over, but it has 8.4 billion people to feed. There is going to be famine, and not only in the places one usually expects it, there will be famine even perhaps in places of America, food crises, and in other places. And that's coming probably towards the autumn. So the thing is that what is going on here is a war over energy dominance. The think tanks that the idiots in our leadership listen to are and think as truth is we are basically trying to repeat. If I understand Brian's theory, we are trying to repeat the fortune that we had at the end of the last World War that was profiting from the misfortune of most of the industrial nations that fought the war that were completely devastated. Not only in Europe, but the Soviet Union, which did the lion's share of winning the victory of World War II, lost 27 million people, 14 million wounded and injured, 9 million Soviet soldiers dead, and I think 18 million civilians that starved or died from the Nazi invasion. which claimed in total 5 million Germans and maybe a few million more Axis people. So this was so America was the only the reason why Bretton Woods happened and people started to look at what's going to be the new world order in the post-World War II world. It was pretty easy to pick who was going to talk about that because they all came to where? America to discuss this. Starting in 1944, we were basically the only big economy left standing in the world of major first world economies. All the others, Japanese were destroyed. The Dutch and the Dutch East Indies, their economies were in ruins. Germany was a lunar landscape, its ruins. France, everybody. So the Americans had capital politically as well as industrially to think big. And in fact, General George Marshall, who really ran World War II for the American side, he then became Secretary of State with Truman, and he ended up creating the Marshall Plan, which was used somewhat in Asia to rebuild nations, but it was primarily focused on rebuilding Europe. And we had the money because nobody else had money. We had only had a few craters fired into our uh, into Santa Barbara by a Japanese submarine, and there was a family in a picnic that got killed by one of their floating balloon bombs, and really, except for that, that was it. That was all the bombing and strafing and killing that happened on our homeland. We were very lucky. And in a way, some of that luck shined off on our allies. But also, what happened was it started to create this new world order where America founded NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Association, and it was our way to create the new block of the free world, so quote unquote, the first world that had the Europeans as our satellites now, not no longer the masters of the world like they were before World War One. Now we were a superpower, and the Soviet Union were the two superpowers dividing the world. The Warsaw Pact was the counterbalance to NATO of conventional forces that would prevent a NATO encroachment on the Soviet Union. Then what then eventually happened so the US dollar then completely eclipsed the pound sterling of England, which had been the reserve currency of the world for a long time in the 19th century into the 20th century. We then replaced it. And so and then with the change of getting off the gold standard and floating our currency, we went from gold being the reliance of it into Saudi Arabian petrol. And then we started this big mistake where we started to do something that was rare for Americans. We were not people who spent beyond our means. It's very un-American that we ended up being in this totally, deficit spending economy. I mean, even when I got back from India, I've always been a pay-as-you-go person, but I looked at how I could get my career going as a writer back in the States, and I said, I'm going to have to join this economy, where I'm going to have to maximize my credit card and then start paying it off so I can just get a start. Um, and I was forced to follow this reality because I couldn't do it without doing what everybody else was doing. It's sort of like the way I'm trying hard not to have a cell phone. It's getting harder and harder each day not to have a cell phone because it's like it's the tyranny of you must have it to actually be a citizen now. Everything through your cell phone. So anyway, what then happened is we started to do the long-term bonds, and the Saudis would buy them. The Saudis would buy them, and in U.S. dollars, and that gave the U.S. dollar a standard, not on gold anymore, but on Arabian petrol, gas products, natural gas, and all of that. So, um, but then the Cold War ended. The Soviet experiment economically failed. A small little war was enough to end the Soviet Union's military might. It was exposed for being the white elephant and rusting thing that it was. Just like we're being exposed in this karmic echo of our approach to a similar fate that the Soviet Union suffered, it is now our turn as the former superior hegemon of the Cold War to now face the music that we have to make a rapid retreat out of imperium and our bases and all of that. And nothing has more significantly revealed to the world how much our threats are not backed by conventional warfare means. Now, of course, the danger is we might think the danger for the United States leadership and the danger for us is we might both mistaken the overlords and the overwhelmed might the people might make the mistake of thinking that this declining hegemon is no longer very powerful. It is still exceedingly powerful in a most dangerous way. If all of its lower escalatory ladder weaponries and steps are all kind of showing that to be dysfunctional, what's left but nuclear? What's left then the temptation to say, well, maybe if we get the Iranians' attention with a 74 kiloton nuclear bomb on Tehran. Um, and I wrote about those who read the Hogue prophecy reports, and the one that I'm making available for those who haven't for $5 is that you will if you put Paul on the thing is that you will be you we will be I had said in this stellium of all these planets in Aries, god of war in astrology, also the god of new beginnings and new enterprises. Right now it's kind of leaning towards the god of war. um, And I was saying that after this stellium reached its maximum between the 16th and 18th of this month, that was kind of the conception of the influence that's kind of come after it. And so the influence, the thing that's going to impact us, the actions that will come as a result of this stellium, whether it's war or new beginnings, is in the second half of April. And I was been warning my readers that the way it looked, that the last 2 weeks, we're through the last week where it was the week three was when Trump had his meltdown. Around that time or shortly after, had his meltdown, where General Kane, who is the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Trump was for 3 hours having this 8-year-old screaming and yelling. He was out of control. He's having a cognitive meltdown, and they were in the midst, all the people in the war room were in the midst of command and controlling how to get those two fighter pilots out and not have them be captured, and some of the other stuff that was going on, which basically they were trying to handle the damage control of a smaller version of what he threatened to do to steal the uranium powder from the Iranians and then use that as some theatrical, well, we stole their nuclear power from them, declare victory. The silliness of that is that they could probably regenerate that amount of powder in a year. So it's not really a major deal. It's just a postponement. So anyway, finally, General King, thank goodness, he found his spine and he basically backed Trump out of the war room and said, you have to stop this commotion. We have a situation here. And then he was like he was yelling, I want the football. I want to look at the codes. I want you to bring in the nuclear codes. And he said, "No, we're not going to do that. We're going to save these people." And according to our Constitution, that is an illegal order, and no serviceman, from private to an admiral or general, need obey that. So he said, "You calm down, Mr. President. We need you to calm down, and so go out there and settle down and let us do our job." So that was so he, being that he is really a bully wimp, and if somebody really stands up to him, he crumbles. He went and sat down. Granddad, it's time for you to sit over and play with your tiddlywinks while we do this stuff. And so what's happening is that our current think tanks and their leaders, and neocons and all the think tanks, are basically sharing the view that they're actually there to destroy the Persian Gulf. And or destroy Iran's infrastructure, take it into the Stone Age. They're there to do that. And of course, Iran's response to that is, well, if you do it to us, we will take the rest of the Gulf states down with us. And then that will impact you and impact the world's energy source. We don't want to do that. We never sought to do that. But if you're going to take us to the Stone Age, we will take all the Gulf kingdoms, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait with us. And all that oil and all that stuff that you need it'll be even more, like 32% of all the things you need in the energy markets to make a modern global civilization run. And it will be it won't be a recession. It won't be a Great Depression. It will be the greatest depression, which I've been writing about for over 15 years. And it will happen. But what I'm gaining understanding now is they don't care about that. The powers that be, what they want is to create a devastated world where everybody has to buy oil and gas and LNG gas from the Americans. That is this, and what they're also trying to do is, because one big threat to a dying hegemonic global power is the BRICS, that the global majority, 17.5 million people in America's reality. 17, it's like, anyway, the West's population compared to the rest of the world that's unplugging from us is small. It's very small. You have the vast majority of the world that is now going into the New World Order, which is a multipolar, um, um, respect each other's sovereignty community. You can only be in the BRICS if you sign off on not meddling in another country's business. You just do your own business and do with them. And what it's trying to do is to create something we haven't had for a long time, since the United States has gotten addicted to war, and not addicted to victory either. They're addicted to quagmire wars, because if you have victory, you have no more money going into war. It goes to peace. And what the military industrial complex learned at the end of the Cold War, the real shock, because their values and everything went down, because holy crap, peace happened. Peace. No more wars with the Soviet Union. No more indirect conflicts, no more waiting for something to happen, no more Iraqi freedoms, no more Afghanistan's. And what they then started to think about with neoconservative prompting, the neocons were starting to rise in U.S. government, I've published in my book on the war with Iran, that I wrote in 2007, that I published how a whole new plan. I quoted a lot of Dick Cheney's essays and other essays and how they evolved. The neoconservatives said, we're all bullish for quagmires and just keeping tensions in the world, making a list of enemies that may not even be enemies, and then making a list that we got to take each one of them out, has created a unstable world where lots of millions of people are dying, but man, is it good for business. So this attitude, which is in the United States, is evolving now into a global conflict mindset. What Why is it that Iran's going down in their goals? Why is it that they're okay with the Middle East and all their so-called allies that they didn't protect? To see them literally have their water desalination plants bombed by Iran and literally cause millions, hundreds, 40 million people to leave the Persian Gulf, mostly Saudis. It's part of the plan. Berletic was talking about how there's this major expansion of natural gas fields that is going on. There's of course, if the oil is more expensive, then fracking can be resumed. It thrives during a high oil cost situation. So all those fields in North Dakota will be fracked again, and because it then makes a profit. So these people have no scruples about. They just want power. They just want to keep America as the dominating figure. And if they ruin everybody, their goal is to make sure that we're less ruined than everybody else. So we're the boss. I mean, that's as vulgar a way as I can paint it to you. So this war is about causing economic. Look at the places that are already suffering from famine, food shortages, fuel shortages. They're major members of the BRICS, all the Southeast Asians, there's problems in India, which is one of the top three BRICS members, one of the original four founders after South Africa put the S on BRIC. And that means it's Brazil, Russia, uh, India, but now I'm thinking Iran is taking that eye because India's kind of been on the sidelines with the BRICS, not knowing which side to be on. For this is often happening, and also and then there's China as the C, and the S is the S of South in South Africa. And then there's now about 35 members that are in the process of going into the BRICS, and Saudi Arabians were part of that, but now they're also on the fence. But they are these things that are hitting foodstuffs and famine dangers is going to be set. Many of the countries around the world that want to join the BRICS in Africa and Asia. And of course, when people are in famine, those governments will probably be in turmoil. And that is exactly the strategic move that we're seeing here. This attack on Iran is also an attack on the BRICS nations with the hope that through pain and suffering and running low on energy to just fuel your simple gas to cook your food, which is hitting Vietnam and Southeast Asia and India really hard already, just weeks after this whole thing started. What will it be like in 6 months? It could be, food and the basics of life has always been the trigger for upheavals and revolutions. So the United States leadership is openly trying to wage this war to keep its hegemonic survival by undermining all those nations that wish to actually bring a peaceful, stable world to us. We can't be more the bad guys in history right now than before. We're the new Gross Deutsches America. We're the American Reich. And we're trying to keep our hegemonic power by making the world a worse place to live in, but a world that they can rule anyway. And because, even American satellites, you watch in the next few months, Europe will go into a profound depression. We don't care. We'll just say, shut up and still be our vassals. What can you do? Well, you're going to go to Russia? We're going to destroy them. You're going to go to China? We're going to try to undermine their energy because Russia can't pump all its oil into China. So we're going to try to do this. So, this is an indirect way to undermine China. The direct way is hitting Iran because Iran is the major oil exporter to China. The idea is to have China collapse or go into upheaval, and that would isolate Russia. So this is the most open, broad terms, is the nature of the Third World War that we are in. It is America's third world war against the world to destroy the BRICS, isolate China from its energy sources. It's a war against energy because if you don't have the energy, especially if you're a big power, you cannot be a big power. But it won't work. It's a crack brain idea. And what I think will happen is just like 80 million Germans deciding to take on the world in World War II. Oh, 280 million Soviet citizens. We'll just throw 3 million people at them and we'll win. Well, it didn't happen that way. They ended up at the time when the Soviet Union was breaking through into Poland and into Germany. The Soviet standing army was 15 million men. And the German army in 1943, when the Germans could still kind of push their weight around before Kursk, the Battle of Kursk in July 43, they had a total of 9 million men. It was like their largest amount. And three-quarters of them were in the Soviet Union front, the Eastern Front. There were only 1 million Germans fighting in the Western Front. Um, it's demographics, it's numbers, it's mad people are now repeating the karmic echo of Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich. The good guys that used to have the white hats are now out to take the whole world down into a more chaos. So that will hurt America, they think a little bit, but we will be on top and people will have to buy our oil and come back to the US dollar. And that's the name of that tune.
We do have a question, John, if you want
Okay.
to take it. Okay, this is from SSB. What does Uranus in Gemini tell us about what is to come? I've seen that when this comes in the past, conflicts arise.
Well, yes, it does because it's interesting because there's a parallel here to World War II, which is germane to what I've just been saying. World War II, in the prelude to World War II, Uranus was in Cancer in its fall, like it has been for a long time, since it started around with Trump's first term, around that area. And it's in its fall, which means it's in the absolute worst place that Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, which is a air sign, and also the theme of the next millennial epoch, which is a idea of individual sovereignty for the masses. That means ultimately that countries over the next 150 years, when we get into the Aquarian age, will pretty much disappear. And what will replace them is the sovereign individual. Only the sovereign individual is truly sovereign, with other sovereign individuals can work together in community. So I'm not saying there won't be countries, but the whole political order will have changed. I have a essay in my book of things to come, one of the larger essays and more important ones about, the future of democracy, that I've had outlined for 30 years, and now I'm finally going to publish it. So it's important to know that Hitler taking over Nazi Germany, which was the key point to really eventually get the World War going, Second World War going, happened when Cancer was uh, when Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, was in Taurus, the last place in the world it wants to be. And what happens when it's in Taurus? When things happen in falls, um, every planet has the potential of being in a fall. Like Venus is in fall, in its fall in Scorpio, and it also exaltations happening, like Pluto being exalted in Leo. Um, it's because Aquarius is the revolutionary change planet, the humanitarian. If it's stuck in the mud of Taurus and stubborn Taurian negative potentials, it literally is a moment where the state takes the power of revolution to make the state more powerful and you less free. That's what Nazi Germany did. That's what Mussolini's Italy did. That's what the Imperial Empire of Japan did. And that is what also had Stalin during the time when Uranus was in its fall in Taurus, was the great terrors and purges of the Soviet Union by Joseph Stalin. In short, it's a time where something that should make you freer, the theme of Aquarius, when it's in its fall, it makes you less free and more suppressed by totalitarianism. And so there was a lot of that brewing. This is where all this preliminary darkness started to descend on the world, especially the so-called free world in Europe and here. The COVID shutdown was definitely an experiment in what the overwhelmed masses would do if their overlords ordered them to sit still and do nothing. It may come back again with what's coming with this crisis of energy. So, so the so what then happened is towards the time of World War II beginning, Uranus left Cancer and went into Gemini. And if I recall, for the majority of the its transit, most of World War II had it in Gemini, and and so that is a situation of polarity, finding complementary new ideas, new. It was the whole idea of thinking up a new world and United Nations and all that also comes from Jupiter. That's right. It was Jupiter we're talking about. It was in Gemini. Anyway, it is a I'll check that. Sorry, folks, but the the main thing about what I see about Jupiter in Gemini is new ideas, new thinking. So I actually have an article for my next May Hogue Prophecy report. I was writing on it today. Um, and it is a so look to see there's going to be confusion and it's going to be exacerbated by the way in which Jupiter may be aspecting Neptune in Aries, which it's there for a long time till 2039. And Neptune in Aries is makes it difficult. One wants to move forward. Aries is about new beginnings, step forward, start something new, but a confusion about what is required to make it the new successful. It is a planet that rules two things: mass media, collective messages to the world, and as well as the other aspect of Neptune, Poseidon of the Greek gods, is that he is not only a god of the ocean or the oceanic message or the oceanic things, he is the god of earthquakes. Obviously, that was brought into it by the ancient Greeks because of tsunamis that happen. So, tsunami changes, not always planned, is something that can happen. One tsunami is happening in this period of time is a temperature tsunami, where the whole world is warming up. The wave, if you turned water into temperature record waves of numbers, it's going like this here, and suddenly it did a couple jumps. There was a tsunami after 2010, and then we had a whole string of very hot years. This year is probably going to be with the super El Nino that's coming is probably going to make this the hottest in temperature record breaks of them all in human history that we've lived. And so that's another spike where, because tsunamis don't come in like a wave like this, like you see in the movies. Basically, what it is, it's literally like the whole ocean is being tipped into the land. Like if you had a pool and you had this model of land here and you just tipped it down for the ocean to just come in. And so if you ever watch the CCTV cameras of the island of Hokkaido during the superquake that hit in March 2011, you will see some remarkable things. It doesn't come in as a wave. It's like the whole ocean just decided to rise and everything sinks under it. So think of those metaphors. Things that we called stability will be sunk under by something new that's massive and across the world. Um, the the Some of the earthquakes are revolutions. So it is, and of course, it'll be very bit much a struggle for the next 2 years when Neptune is interacting not just with Gemini, confusing it more, struggling into it, making it more like, am I this way or that way for the polarity of Gemini? Are we going to go here this way or that way? Is this right or is this wrong? And so there's a lot of that going on, but there's also um, with Saturn in its fall, that means it's Aries is the like Uranus being in Taurus. It means it's the worst place for Saturn to do what it does. Whatever Saturn can do in as its natural way of showing truth over limitations of illusions. People call Saturn the limiter, but Saturn only limits stupid ideas, illusory dreams that cannot come real. And if you pursue them, you head to disaster, and then you curse Saturn for it. But Saturn's trying to say, "Hey, I'm the truth teller, man, and you love to lie. So your downfall comes from the fact that you unconsciously have followed your limits and your lies to yourself, your illusions. I limit these. If you love truth, I'm here saying, hey, wake up. Don't go there. Hey, Napoleon, don't invade Russia. Not going to work good for you." Um, so there's that stuff going on in the leadership and the lead that's also involved in this period, especially in these next 2 years up to April of 2028, when Saturn moves out of its fall in Aries. But I can imagine with what'll happen is Saturn will this to be impetuous, Saturn to be impetuous is really against the grain of Saturn. Just like Uranus being inverted, its revolutionary new ideas is actually that energy is turned into a no, we're going to make a totalitarian revolution and push people down, like Nazi Germany. Well, in the case of truth, in Saturn and Aries trying to start a new beginning is going to have a great difficulty because it's going to be fed with impetuosity and the impatience, rashness, the negatives, the illusions of the Aries world. And so, but one thing to remember is that many people who have Saturn in Aries are some of our greatest scientists. Einstein had it. Many people, and when I've been reading people in my readings, and I see they have, I tell you, since 2018, when I returned to private readings, when I come across many people with Saturn in Aries, I said, "Are you involved in scientific investigation or this and that?" And I have not had a person say no. They kind of look surprised. They said, "Well, yes, I am. I am involved in scientific investigation as well. You've got this Saturn and Aries. So a good possibility that will come out from how other planets aspect this down the next 2 years. And I will be writing about this and clock some of the windows of things, is there will be positive influences that will, I think, because science thrives on challenge of resistance. It's like what greater example of that is Edison trying to make a light bulb. He, after 2,500 attempts, his assistant said, "Oh, drop it. It's not going to work. We can't make a light bulb." And Edison said, "You're seeing this upside down. We are killing all the failures. Every attempt is getting closer to eradicating all the wrong ways to make a light bulb." And so so stay with it. We're very close. Yes, I know, 1,000, 2,000 failures. That means we're very close. And his assistant didn't buy it, and then he went on alone. And two steps after that, his wife woke up and ran in the middle of the night into his lab. I said, "What the hell is that light? There's this light. What are you doing?" And then she saw the light bulb lit up. So struggle is part of the scientific process. Failure and then try again. And what I'm saying is that in the next 2 years, there could be the seeds planted for some remarkable inventions. Who knows? Some of them might even make oil irrelevant. Who knows? Maybe some of them might find another way to make fertilizer. When there are shortages of something, that inspires people to find other ways to do it. So it's going to be a mix of that too, to be positive about it, to be alchemical about it. These hardships coming challenge human beings to rise up to them. And these things that try to suppress human beings, um, they usually fall apart on their own hubris because it, it just doesn't work. Nazi Germany didn't work. The Soviet Union of Stalinism didn't work. Um, this neocon hegemonic BS that we're trying to build when it's past, we should let it go and come back to just being America, a power amongst powers. They even talked about it in Trump's administration, but they completely lost the think tankers got a hold of them, the ones that Brian Berletic reads. And they say, no, no, this is what we got to do. And so this is how America will not only lose a war, but a world war, trying to do this silliness. And hopefully, this will be the shock that wakes the American people out of their almost childlike stupor and start to redefine and return home. Cancer country loves home and hearth. Erase all those expensive bases we don't need anymore. Let's take what we've got and go back to a world where we didn't have a military industrial complex sucking all of our wealth away for nothing, not even for victory, just to keep war going in the world. And that's just a terrible legacy about the United States that it would go there. But we can get out of there. We have to, sometimes when you're addicted to a bad habit, you have to go all the way down before you shake out of it or die, or you step back before you die and start the sobriety of the American dream again. Anybody else?
No, but I do have a question.
Okay.
What's your take because of this whole conflict of the the planets, get alignment? What's your take on the Epstein revelations that are, being leaked out? Do you think something big is going to be happening, let's say, in the next 12 months?
Well, I mean, what I'm seeing is the pressure of a new beginning. Now, in Aries, sometimes it'll take a war to expose that because basically, I mean, Mohammed Morandi, one of my sources, Iranian sources for years, decades, he, I think he coined, I haven't asked him yet. I'll have to write him, see if he coined it. First of all, at least the first time I heard anybody talking about the Epstein regime, that the United States government and the Israeli government are both Epstein regimes, began. Now that whoever's coined that phrase is now crossed all over the place. It's everywhere, and it fits. Corruption, spiritual corruption, constitutional corruption, um, a hubris of thinking that we're the number one nation, or the hubris of a very small nation thinking that it is the master race um, after Hitler. So, how that go for Adolf? Not very well. It's not going well for Israel, and it could be the end of Israel. So, nations are going to disappear in this period and be greatly changed. Gulf states may not be there anymore. The U.S. bases in West America might be expelled from Asia, Western Asia. Um, this, so yeah, it could be. It's getting exposed. I mean that's kind of in the mix. It's also in the mix with Neptune in this same stellium. What's the mass message about this? What's Epstein about? And how does it affect all of us? That's kind of a Neptunian Aries. Maybe we need to look a second time at all this, a new start. So it's just going to be really tangled with a lot of false starts and a lot of confusion. But in a way, it's kind of a conjuring up the demon of confusion that has been underpinning everything that looks only falsely in order that's been going on in the roaring 2020s.
We do have a message from Joanne. She sent last week a request for a reading, but she hasn't heard back. So you might want to check your email.
Oh, yeah. Uh, yeah, Joanne, send me an email. You can send me an email now and I can talk to you about it. I'll look in my emails segment and see. I do remember you sending, but I think I've been waiting for your response. So, yeah, Joanne, just we'll do that reading.
Okay.
And yeah, give me an email. I'll look out for your email at the end of the show.
Okay. So hopefully, Joanne, you can resend and everything will be okay for you.
Yeah, I
And
mean, sometimes emails they just sometimes they don't go through or something. It's rare, but it happens.
I want to dive a little bit into the whole Epstein thing. The reason why I am is because I saw a 4 hour podcast with
Wow.
Julian Dorsey. All right. This is the first time I've seen his work. And he was interviewing a guy named, I think, Henry Abbott. I think it's his name. And he went into something I have never heard about before because at the surface level, a lot of people are like focused on the pedophilia and the girls for the rich and the powerful to compromise them. Maybe it's tied into some sort of intelligence operation by the Israelis or the United States. Most likely it is, but it goes like even deeper. And I want to get your take on this.
Okay.
So the theory here, all right, and they had 4 hours of
Wow.
the details about this, but this is really just the opening of the door of something deeper. It's
Hmm.
not about the pedophilia, even though everyone's focused on that.
They
That's
want you to be focused on that.
that's actually the minor part,
Yeah, that's a distraction.
right? Well, they call it that's the opening of the gate. Okay,
Yeah.
so let me try to describe
Okay.
really quickly and then get your take on it.
Okay.
So the opening of the gate is that you have Epstein, who is trying to compromise individuals based on their sexual deviance.
Yeah.
All right. And once they're compromised, there's a group of people that need these individuals compromised to be able to get them to do certain things, either because they're in tech or they're in banking, and it's tied into money laundering
Mm-hmm.
and moving money from different countries and working with the mob, um, and the black market, and creating these shell companies that's moving money around that leads to arms sales. So this is really, so what's happening here is that there is almost like a pyramid of power.
Mm.
At the very top are people that benefit by moving big chess pieces in the world, especially with war.
Yeah.
All right. And it's not just individuals in our time, it's individuals in a generational time.
Mm.
It's not just like, oh, next week or 10 years from now. They're thinking in 25, 50, 100-year increments.
Mm.
All right. Now, from there, they have the next level that are told what to do.
Mm.
Epstein is at that second level.
Yeah.
And people like Epstein.
He's an enabler.
And what happens is the next level are compromised individuals that can actually do the work.
Yeah.
All right. We call them the rich and famous,
Yeah.
but really they are the workers,
Yeah.
the worker bees for the echelon.
Yeah.
And we are below that. So, and we're all focused on the whole pedophilia, which famous person was compromised, but that's like, that means really nothing. It's the bigger, and the reason why I'm bringing it up is because you were talking about earlier about conflict and war and instability and this movement of the astrology where we're getting into a dangerous situation, which aligns with this.
Mm-hmm.
I know people are going to think I'm crazy when I say this, but Epstein and everything that was going on with it seems like it has a lot to do with weapons and war,
Mm-hmm.
and mob and money laundering and shell companies moving money around. So I mean, you can take it anywhere you want to go, but it was because I don't really follow the whole Epstein thing. I'm so focused on other stuff, but I was floored when I heard it because I haven't heard anybody else really talk about it in that kind of detail, where the pedophilia thing is really the minor part. And it's almost like there's an occult. When
Yeah,
you
I
get
was
into
about to say.
this upper level, the echelon, I'll call them the
Mhm.
echelons, and this second level, the Epsteins. This is an
Yeah.
occult kind of thing that's going on.
Yeah, it's very satanic. It's kind of the inversion of the sacred. It's it is been greatly aided by the technologies that have also helped us interact with everybody else in the world. It has not had this level of interconnection. Um, it's more of the West. It's actually divided. There's not a lot of those. You will not find a lot of that in Russia and in China. It is more Western oriented. It's mostly focused around there. Yes, some of the more westernized countries like Japan may be also involved in it. But, they look at the BRICS and the new Russia rising, the Russia that Edgar Casey foresaw would be the hope of the world. It's possibly going to be a big impediment to that. Um, I can see where um, the doorway into corrupting Russia would be all the Russians that are a little more liberal than most Russians who still want to embrace European culture. But that is bait. And if they succeed after Putin to being more Western oriented again, then these people will take over Russia. But that the bait will be the honeypot will be, oh, and it's something that Putin struggles with because he really likes Europe. It's really against his way to have to block Europe out, but he is a patriot first. It was not easy. And he kind of went too long trying to make peace with the Europeans. And clearly, those were attempts to for this kind of black aristocracy, a dark aristocracy that is reaches its pinnacle of power, just as Pluto finished its transit through up to Capricorn, 27 degrees. But the problem was that 248 years ago, a similar version of people like this, especially in Europe, because it was the center of the world power, were, there were the Freemasons and groups, esoteric groups, putting on the airs of some religion, but also having a lot of satanic elements in them. These societies were very much big at the time when Pluto was at its peak of the rise of aristocracies in Europe, and they were all, just like now, profiting from a new class of humans called the middle class. And it was this nice little balancing act where the middle class was generating more capital rather than aristocrats just spending it. And so they said, well, let's let these people have a little free reign here. And they were mainly burgeoning in France and Britain at the time of the American Revolution and the 13 British colonies in America. And then this whole issue of taxation problems came up in America, and America did something that none of the founding fathers wanted to do, but it was the only recourse left because there was nobody on the other side that was listening to them. Because I would say there would be some influence from those secret societies of that day, the black side of aristocratic life that wanted to have America sat on because they saw the danger that this was the first attempt of the middle class to say, we're tired of you sucking on our tits. We're a cow that is actually a bull. So stop doing that, and just starting to say we're kind of against this. And so it was an economic issue that led to the 13 colonies breaking away from Britain, fighting the American Revolutionary War, and as to be free of that. Um, so the the apotheosis cycle is every 248 years where aristocrats, the 1% running, having all the wealth and everybody else not, reaches its peak. And so by the American Revolution, that was the peak of aristocratic control in Europe, and then it soon rapidly declined into when Pluto started to transit through Aquarius, revolution. It started to transit into the French Revolution. The French Revolution, the American Revolution was the dream, the model. It was the French Revolution that started a century of revolutions. And the Pluto return is coming in 2034 through 2036. The same return of the America that will bring the same kind of energies that started the French Revolution, which basically started slowly changing the world. And the difference now is that now middle classes, there were just middle classes in a few places back then in the 1770s. Now almost every country on the planet has a growing middle class. In fact, China very soon has a middle class of 800 million people. Um, so that will give it tremendous power of wealth, and this is what's frightening the United States. I mean, China has been, if you gauge economy by a reality rather than stupid GDP stuff, real economy is people buying and selling, is the passage of goods to customers and to, if you look at all of that and what's manufactured, China has been the number one super economic power since 2016, just as Mao predicted in 1951 it would be. I don't know how he did that, but it is. And so we're now in a full 248 cycle of years have passed. We are now approaching the new reboot of America's model or its destruction. Uh, and also the passing of the torch of that rebuild to a renewal of the global doorway, where this time all the middle classes will be involved in some degree of revolution against these secret societies of our times that have much more reach because of the global interconnectivity of the world.
Right. So let me just do a follow-up there. So do you still think that we have a version of the Hellfire Club?
I don't know who they are.
Is it 18th
Explain.
it was the 18th century kind of
Pick your name of, Freemasons, Hellfire, all the secret societies were the previous attempt of doing what these societies are doing now, but these are much darker
Mhm.
and much more depraved.
So what was interesting, and I didn't see the movie, the whole Eyes Wide Shut movie. I
I
didn't know
did.
I didn't see it. So but what I did see a documentary about, the crazy stuff that was going on,
Yeah,
the filming of it. And then
yeah,
Kubrick
I've seen that.
shortly died before it was released, but there was a director's cut, supposedly.
Well, and there's some question whether he went into a dangerous place
Right,
with
right,
that
right,
movie.
right.
He thought of it as his greatest film, and probably if they left it alone, it would be his greatest film. But man, did he look aged. He aged so fast doing that film. He was 70 looking like 80 or 90. His beard went white like mine, but he looked burned out. And I sometimes wonder if they just he was always the way his directing style. I just watched this morning how they made Doctor Strangelove, and one of his it's not very nice, but it works. He liked to do all those thousands of takes so that he could kind of wipe away the ego, the fake actor, the technique, and really keep people kind of nervous and offset to do this and have no pretense of actors acting.
Mhm.
And I had a similar experience when I was in this art film with Richard Evans, who actually was a well-known character actor. He lived here on the island, and he in one session where I had to play this guy who was a real like these guys, a real Epstein character, and he yelled at me. He says, "Don't act. You've got it. You don't need to do any. Just stop doing that. Just." And so I just went into that real dark place playing this heavy. And I looked at this lady, and the way I looked at her was just disgusting. And I remember when the thing was over, I mean, people were like, "Yeah, that's it. You got it. You nailed it." And then at the end of the take, I went, "Ugh, I feel so dirty." And
I was watching a lecture by the director of the Lincoln Center. It's a theatrical um, company in New York, and she
Hmm.
was talking about Ragtime, the
Mm.
play, the musical. So
Oh, the movie.
so she was talking about how they were doing the auditions and how they were like looking for what she called truth.
Mm.
Where because a lot of times, especially on stage, they maybe a little bit more flamboyant, or they sing a little bit too much,
Yeah.
too forcefully.
Very
So
cultural.
she was really focused on this idea of
Yeah.
being truthful, in the
Yeah.
act, or
Yeah.
truthful during the performance.
Verismo, as they say in Italy. Yeah, some of the things that Kubrick did, for instance, everybody remembers George C. Scott's over-the-top performance. It was fantastic. But I learned today that Scott wanted to do it serious. And so what Stanley Kubrick would do is say, okay, just for fun, just do it over the top. And he'd say that in everything that he did. And then when Scott saw the film, he hated it and never would work with him again. But I'm sorry, Mr. Scott, that worked. That's genius being. Sometimes genius can be tricky, and I'm glad that Kubrick was so tricky. Well, in the case um, oh, the guy who played the main character in Eyes Wide Shut, you know, the famous
Oh,
guy,
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Um, if you notice, he looks very insecure and unstable. And it's what he needed. Here's this guy, kind of a doctor, kind of goes into this other world. And then when the scene comes where he's crying, he's really broken. And he was even doing he was like doing 100, 200 takes of everything, smallest stuff. And he just had to get Tom Cruise, Mr. Under Control, vulnerable.
Well,
It's
there's
almost a bit of torture involved.
according to the
But
documentary,
directors have to do that sometimes.
yeah, but it took longer to film than what was expected. I think it was like
All of his
100,
films did.
400 and something. But he really focused on Tom Cruise for two reasons. One, to wash away the fakeness to get to that truth. But
Hmm.
also Tom Cruise, because this was being filmed longer than expected, he had other commitments,
Yeah,
and so he wasn't as versed with the lines, and
yeah,
it upset Kubrick,
yeah,
and he did it on purpose just to piss Tom
yeah,
Cruise off. Which is
yeah.
the guy who is the crazy guy? Um,
Well, there were a
no, no,
number of them.
no, no. Now we're going to Apocalypse Now. The one that
Yeah.
was doing the camera work. What's the actor's name?
That was yes, the
Is
guy who
it
did Easy Rider.
Yeah, Dennis Hopper, right?
Yeah, Dennis Hopper.
Right.
Also amazing as a
He
bartender.
was talking that he had the same problem with Kubrick, because he said he didn't know his lines very well, and he kept
Yeah,
redoing the takes.
that's right. I remember that. Yeah, and he was like, "Oh man, I mean, man, this guy. He's oh God, it's a man." But he also was an Indian runner with Viggo Mortensen, one of his early films before he was famous. I became a big fan of him before he was ever Aragorn. So same with Ian McKellen, because I saw him in Priest of Love back in '79, his first American film, and he was just remarkable as D.H. Lawrence, in exile from England because of his Lady Chatterley lover and all that. And they filmed it all in the places where Lawrence lived and died, in Mexico and also in Tuscany. I think that's where he died.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's good directors play tricks. Sometimes they can use it with kindness. Sometimes they use it with confrontation. I mean, the thing I learned is Peter Sellers was supposed to play the cowboy B-52 pilot that Slim Pickens played, and he didn't. He said he just couldn't get it right. So Peter Sellers might have even feigned a twisted foot in that very complicated interior of the B-52, which, by the way, got a lot of people in the U.S. Air Force thinking that he stole plans or something like that. It was so close to what the interior of a B-52 looks like. So anyway, I've learned this morning that Slim Pickens was brought in to be the cowboy because Peter Sellers couldn't manage it. And he did all the other characters, but he couldn't manage this one. And he Kubrick never told him that it was a comedy. He said, play it straight. So he had him play the whole thing straight. Even when they got him on the model missile going, "Wah-hoo, ha-ho, ha-ho, ha." um, and he only found Pickens only found out later when he saw the film that he had been, tricked into doing it serious, and doing it serious worked. I mean, it was, this is the other story about Dr. Strangelove. It first started with Kubrick doing it as a serious movie. He was thinking of this, the whole story would be a serious movie like Failsafe ended up being, which was filmed around the same time, 1963, 1964, just after the Cuban Missile Crisis in 62. And and he there was one point where Kubrick was looking at what he was setting up, and he was saying, and he just cracked up laughing and said, "I got to make this a comedy." Because these these nut jobs and their plans is it's so dark, it's humorous, it's so like crazy, it's funny. So he laughed, so he turned the movie into a comedy,
Mhm.
dark comedy. And then the ending sequence, he took days of sleepless nights and stuff trying to create, because they had this big pie fight in the war room that was supposed to be the climax to the movie, and there's stills of it. He made sure that the footage was destroyed. He didn't want it out there, but there's stills from, and all the people are literally covered in cake. You can hardly recognize who's throwing what at whom. And but he said, "Well, that I don't have an ending now. What am I going to do?" So he ended up doing this incredible thing, which was based on something Peter Sellers did as Dr. Vermerkte Liebe. That was his German name, turned into Strangelove. One guy says, "Oh, why is Dr. Strangelove? I don't understand that name." "Oh, well, it used to be Vermerkte Liebe." And so the famous scene where he just gets up out of the chair, and he's suddenly not paralyzed anymore. He says, "Well, mein Führer, this is my idea. Mein Führer, I can walk." And he goes 3 steps, and suddenly there's a big explosion of a bomb, and you hear Vera Lynn, who used to be the famous soprano who sang beautiful songs in World War II, going singing too, and it's a lot of men are singing along with her. This is from World War II, and you hear, "We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I'm sure we'll meet again some sunny day." With all these nuclear tests going off, which he filmed in slow motion, I think quarter% slow motion, so that they would do these weird things, and
Mhm.
it worked. I mean, you're not expecting it. Here's this crazy Peter Sellers doing the ultimate weird thing. "My fear, I have an idea." And then if you look at the movie, when he's having the fight with his arm, and Kubrick said, "Yeah, put this on," because Kubrick studied a lot of, and so did Peter Sellers, studied a lot of German scientists. He got a lot of the ideas from German scientists that he knew. And he started to learn how they're always apologizing when they get it. I'm sorry, Mr. President." And but the part where his hand has a mind of its own, the one that's got the glove on, and he holds him, and he goes, and then goes like that. You look at the crowd. The guy who plays Ambassador Kissoff, or no, Ambassador whatever is the funny name they gave to him, who is like the one. Yes, we were too busy with the war race and the peace race. You know? The one that's taking camera shots at the end at the war room. Anyway, you watch him. He's a great English actor. He's having a hell of a time not cracking up. He's going like, and they left it in because it's so funny. He was literally, his face was turning into a wrinkle, trying not to laugh.
And
Um,
it's interesting, like, even with Lucas with Star Wars,
mm,
originally he was trying to make it a comedy that ended
mhm.
up being just a kind of just a sci-fi
A
mythical.
space opera, a classic
Yeah,
space opera
yeah.
with
But
comedic
the
moments.
original intent was,
Mm,
Chewbacca was the space dog.
yeah,
It was
which
built to be
happened
a
with Bartholomew in Spaceballs.
yeah, yeah. No, but
John
it but
Candy.
but it during the filming and it morphed. Another thing that I learned today, Eyes Wide Shut is a remake off of an older German movie.
And a novel, turn of the
Right,
century novel.
right.
Yeah, from Austria. I think it was an Austrian author, German Austrian author. It has a very old Habsburg quality about it. And yeah, I mean it's and then there's the scene that they cut out, which I saw where, they're talking in the toy store shop, and I think what made it also quite intense was that Cruise and his wife then was the famous Australian actress. And and actually, I think it broke up their marriage, the things they went through. I always wondered why they were so terrified, and when he died suddenly, I didn't know until later and put two and two together. It also in the end, his sudden death was, she was not just devastated, but she was also afraid. I feel so afraid, she was saying, and I can't rule out he was going where people of the overwhelmed don't go, into the
Mhm.
world, the dark world of the overlords.
Well, I mean, even
I
with
think he got killed, maybe. Well, or it's just a coincidence because he worked so hard, and when you're holding that kind of energy and doing that kind of stuff and doing all those takes in all of his movies, I think he burned his candle pretty bright,
it
uh,
could be,
up to 70.
it could be a combination of both. But the thing is that there were a lot of symbolism in his movies, going even with Clockwork Orange,
Yeah.
because some people would say that that's really hinting of MK Ultra. And then there's these points in even in Eyes Wide Shut where it's hinting about some details about the occult.
Yeah.
With some of the
Oh yeah.
scenery and even the main castle that they had the ritual in.
And there was a
That
lot of
that used to
orgies.
be a Rothschild
Yep.
chateau.
It's
And then you have
Middle
the
Earth
red
time.
guy in the chair,
Yeah.
like the
It's
red
all taken.
shield,
Yeah.
meaning the Rothschilds.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of
Rothschilds.
a lot of symbolism if you know what you're looking for.
It's
And that
interesting. The Rothschilds are one of the few bridges to the previous Pluto cycle. They were around
Mhm,
doing financing in Europe during the 1770s,
mhm.
and their descendants. Um,
This is the reason why I bring up the Hellfire because that was
yeah.
18th century.
Hmm. So there are these old families, and some of that of the Bittelbergs and all that yeah, it's definitely the dark side of the aristocracy, whether it's the 1700s or today. And yeah, it's a very interesting. Well, we'll see what happens. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but I just found that you just because I didn't see I did watch Clockwork Orange,
Hmm.
um, Doctor Strangelove. I mean, these were a long time ago when I seen them.
Yeah, I think
Obviously,
Paths of Glory was one of my favorites of his film. Paths of
I did
Glory is
too.
a must see. It's about World War I, and a corruption trial with the corruption of French officers. And Kirk Douglas plays the captain who was also a lawyer, but he was also the commander of a regiment that got butchered in the trenches. And I haven't seen a World War I film better than that, except All Quiet on the Western Front, which is 1930. That's a must see too. But that scene when at the end when he's kind of sitting outside of the bar and he's about to be called up, he said, let him listen to the lady sing a little longer before they go back in the trenches. And they had all these French soldiers in there, real tough guys, and they had a lot of portraits. And then the German woman who was captured on a ship that got into their territory, their water territory. So she's like a German, this beautiful German virginal lady, and she ends up singing this la da da dee da 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 dee la da da dee da 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 dee la da da dee la da da dee. And they had the cameras running, and they didn't take much of a take for that. They literally caught these guys, these tough guys, with the cameras on them starting to melt and starting to cry and starting to hide their face. And it's just so poignant. Where they were like ready to rape her in the beginning, they're all thinking of home and thinking of a life beyond war, and it's just one of the most anti-war wonders that anyone's ever filmed. And so that's a must see in the Paths of Glory.
What I liked was the movie 1917. It's a modern film. When did it come out? Hey, hold on. I
Well,
think
1917 is a pivotal year.
it came out in when did it come out?
Bolshevik Revolution.
2019. 2019 was when it came out. And what's interesting about that film is from the moment that the film starts to it ends, it's as if the camera is in front of the scenes and it's moving backward. And so you're feeling that the whole thing is
It's
coming at
venturing
you.
out of the
It's coming
reality.
at you. It's like a movie that it feels that the action is coming towards you.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating how they did that.
Who was the director?
Uh, um, who's the
Sounds
director?
like something Sergio Leone would do. He did Once Upon a Time in America was something like that. Of course, Once Upon a Time in the West is a masterpiece. One of the most beautiful melodies.
Mendez, Sam Mendez.
Oh yeah, Sam Mendes. Well, he's a well-known director. Yeah, good one. Um,
No, it's just fascinating how they did the cinematography.
I mean, in Once
Roger
Upon.
D. Deakins was the
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Well, there's some good people.
but
We're
I
all
just
getting an
that film
experience
I
that Mr.
liked.
Hogue is a real movie buff.
No, I like that film. I thought that was pretty cool with what I saw
Yeah,
but with Kubrick, he's like there's a genius
yeah.
part to him where it's just like
Oh,
you can't quantify. I don't even think you can even teach it in film school. It's just something about it. It's just like there's an obsession, but
yes.
also the
A
idea of just
harnessed neurosis, even harnessed for the greater good.
yeah. But
Yeah.
there's I also see it in Spielberg. There's a Spielberg that whatever this quality is, Spielberg has it and Kubrick has it.
Yeah, well,
It's
Spielberg.
almost like an angle. We're to see the angle, or we're to.
Well, another important influence on Spielberg is David Lean, and he did get to meet him because Spielberg financed the restoration of Lawrence of Arabia. And what happened, the story Spielberg told was that they were all still alive. They were all the actors and people were there, and there was David Lean. And David Lean, as was compelled with every shot, he was telling Spielberg what was his motivation, how he was wanting to do it. And so Spielberg's like having the moment of his life. His idol was David Lean. And the master is telling him how, and only somebody like Spielberg would absorb that well. Um, you know, I have problems sometimes with Spielberg because he's such a sentimentalist and he's not too subtle about it. But I really admired when after when he was about to do Schindler's List, he made a list, or it could have been after Schindler's List, and it might have been when he did his breakout film, which is Private Ryan. Um, he listed in the list every single thing that I don't like about his movies. So I thought, well, that's admirable. He knows his weaknesses. He knows his stuff. Or it's like what he did with War of the Worlds, which is also really good with Tom Cruise.
Mhm.
And what he wanted to do is, I don't want to repeat anything that has been done in any of the other War of the Worlds movies or any other invasions of Earth movies. So he made a point not to have a single cliche of anything else. That's why he came up with that wonderful idea of when the ray gun hits the human, it doesn't destroy the clothing. It literally takes the water of the body inside and turns it poof into ash. And those visions of falling clothing. So it's kind of a metaphor to all the naked people of the Holocaust in this new Martian Holocaust hitting everybody.
Mhm.
And then you just see all these clothes just slowly falling out of the sky. That's brilliant. Or the way he had the little girl Fanning, Dakota Fanning, she's trying to find a place to pee, and it's a nice little brook, and then there's this one body, and there's another body, and then it's nothing but bodies going by, and she turns around, and sees it, and runs back to her father. I mean, that's yeah, he's great. He's great, and but it was Lawrence of Arabia that was his beginning into his journey into film. It was just like for me, it was Wagner's Ring. I mean, I consider there's two lists that I have for certain people that are masters of their art. Um, and Kubrick's one where I say, well, who do you think's the greatest directors or one of the greatest? Well, I put everybody else in this list, and here's Stanley Kubrick. Somebody's just kind of stands alone. I'd put all these composers that I love, but here's Richard Wagner. And it's just because of I mean, he's a super genius. Barry Lyndon is amazing film. He literally brought back the 18th century. He literally made a movie where people behaved exactly and thought and lived. You felt you were taken back into the 1700s, mid 1700s during the Seven Years' War. Um, And Full Metal Jacket, I also love. It's like two movies, and it's odd because they had to film the war stuff first, so that they could shave their heads and do all the stuff with
Oh, I didn't know
FDR
that. I
playing
didn't
the
know
drill
that.
instructor.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. That
Yeah,
makes
they
sense.
had to.
I just figured it was just in sequence, but no, that totally makes sense now.
Well, maybe I'm wrong, but if I'm wrong, the sequence for the actors to recalibrate back to maybe they did the veterans first. Now they had to be the grunts. Now they had to be the guys learning. Give me your war cry. Ah, that's not a war cry. This is F. Lee Ermey.
That was a great
A
movie.
fantastic movie, and the way Kubrick has a sensitivity to music in all of his movies, like the he has. I think it's rare. He has a musicality. He's like an orchestra master in some ways in his movies. I mean, 2001: Space Odyssey was one of my major transformational moments. I would have not had the life I had if I had not watched that and then watched Sergei Bondarchuk's Vladimir, the 7-hour Russian film of War and Peace. These two changed my life. And my mother and father and my brother, they all came to the Grauman's Chinese Theater, and it was like 10 $10 a seat, which then would be like $30 a seat. And in 68, 67 or 68, somewhere around there. And so we watched the movie, and of course the opening everybody loved with it. Oh, and suddenly you're seeing a conjunction of planets, the sun, the earth, and the moon, all in alignment. And it does Oh, dee, da. And then it goes fade out, and my mother turned to me and said, "Oh boy, this is great." She rarely did that. And then the rest of the movie, they were gassed and shocked and lost, and I was like, "What is this? I don't understand it, but I want to understand it. There's something here." And so they're getting in the station wagon. We're going back to Palos Verdes. And they're, "Oh, well, that was a waste of money. And oh, I hated that." And I was saying, "No, no, what about you? I want to, it was trying to say something, and I got to find out." So then I read the novelization by Arthur C. Clarke. And then as I do in my research, I obsess and go deep into stuff. And it got me into my mystical world, that movie. And then War and Peace was actually, I remembered a past life, which was very significant 3 lives ago through it. It was like a spiritual change. And I also learned how that sometimes when you lose your religious dogmas and your churches and all, and you become an atheist society, you just might actually capture Tolstoy's Christian mysticism in a movie far better than if you were religious. It's something I've learned a long time now, that if you're the people that I think are closer to the truth of things are atheists who are not dogmatic, who are questioning the existence. They have decided not to have a comfort of an imaginary friend for adults, God. They're not wanting to personify things, they're really looking deep at it. And there's a scene when Andre dies, his famous scene of his dream before he dies from his wounds and from Borodino, and he's with Natasha, and his son is coming, and Marina, his sister's coming, and he's propped up in his bed, and so Natasha's next to him, looking out the window, and then he starts to have a dream, and in the dream, the room becomes more zen-like. It's like clay walls, and then he suddenly gets up, sits up in the bed, and he's in his white dancing the officer uniform that he danced with Natasha in the famous ballroom sequence. And there's a like ooh, with these high strings going like a distant lonely wind. And then he looks, and there's a door, and it's much farther away. First, what happens? He's sitting in his bed, and he's hearing these ocean of voices coming down at him. And then what you're seeing is these pathways where people, all the classes mixed together, peasants, soldiers, princes and princesses, and they're all looking at him as they're walking down the stairway, going, all gossiping about him as they're looking at him. And then suddenly he looks the other way, and there's the door, the wooden door with the lock on, and he goes, boom, boom, the music. And then there's a shot of him walking, and he's like an luminous reflection. And as he's trying to walk to it, it's taking him forever to get to the door. Classic dream stuff, you know. And he gets to the door, it cuts back to behind him, and he's kind of holding on to the door. He's like doing this. And he's holding on to the door, trying to keep it from opening. And then suddenly it starts to open, and it cuts in from inside, in the blackness inside, looking at him, looking in, and he's all sweating. He's just looking like you're thinking, God, what's he going to see? It's going to be horrible. And then you see what he's seeing, and what it is a little version of him in the infinite blackness walking. And as he walks, the bell goes ding, 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 bong. And there he is back in the bed, sleeping, and his eyes are opening. And he's saying exactly like Tolstoy wrote. He says, yes, that was death, and I have died. And then his eyes change, like, yeah, but yet I'm awake. And this is his voice. He's just not moving his face, it's just his inner voice. And his eyes flash a little, and he says, yes, death is an awakening. And then things are distracted. Here comes his son and Marina and kissing with Natasha and all. And he sees his son and well, they have been talking and they're there with him. And there's a beautiful shot where Marina's got her back turned to him, but you can tell that she's sensing something's happening to him. And she almost afraid turns around to look. And then you don't see him first. You're seeing the reaction in her face, reflecting what she's seeing. And there's these bells going, "Meena, meena, moo, meena, meena, moo, moo." And there he is laying in the bed, regal though dying, and his lids slowly, slowly close. And as they do, you hear this weird thing where they're taking cello strings, doing this weird thing where you hear him lifting. Silence. And all you see for the next minute and a half is a shot which must have taken a long time to find. The camera is a shot from the Russian steppes, looking of the cloudy sky, and there's this one part of cloud that's opening. And as it's opening, because there was a slight cirrus that you almost feel rather than see in the blue sky beyond, it gave an illusion of more dimension and depth to the infinite blue sky. And it's just opening, opening, opening for a minute. Pure silence. That was another epiphany moment for me. I was just, and when I thought, my God, the Soviet guys who are not going to church, they've got it. They've got the Christian mystical side. This is exactly what Tolstoy was trying to express in his writings.
Hmm.
Um, but he was a rebel Christian. So, so yeah, see these films, folks. These are great masterpieces, and I love that we kind of got into something more beautiful than the we came to the light after all this darkness that started this show.
So we're getting near to the end here. So John, could you explain the readings and your periodicals?
I do private readings. I came back to them in 2018. For 26 years, something happened where they were there one moment and they were gone. And people were shocked because a lot of people like my readings. I didn't like them. So I thought there was something I wasn't seeing in the way. It took 26 years to surrender to it, never coming back. And then when it came back and I started reading again in 2018 in Little Rock, Arkansas, in a convention there on the Arkansas River, um, I I came to understand what was missing was the reader was gone. The reader was in the way. Now there's just the reading. And so I do these readings. They can be 2 hours long. They can have a little astrology at the beginning of it to just give you an introduction, although it's not needed. The main course of the reading is the tarot readings because I do this kind of tarot reading where I'll start a Celtic cross, and then if I get the message to stop at one of the places in that Celtic cross, I pull that card out and I start another Celtic cross, which does in cards a digging deeper and deeper until there's a moment where we're in this together, you the being read and me the person being the conduit for it. We're discovering this together, and suddenly the cards start doing amazing things where now it feels like we've come to the issue, the real issue. And it's really wonderful and fun. And so what you can do is you can go down and see the Hogue readings, little caption that's down there next to my link to being a subscriber to the Hogue Prophecy Reports. And in there you'll see there's a little mail to Hogue Prophecy, Hogue Bulletin at HogueProphecy.com. And if you click on that and just put reading, Hogue reading in it, I will be able to see that in the hundreds of emails that I get every day and not miss it. And then I'll immediately email you back with the times and further instructions on how to pay for it on PayPal through my website. And and set up a reading. So it's, you know, um, I try with everything, if I'm getting paid, I want to give a gift so that your gift and my gift as a circle of giftness. You help me sustain this work, and then I help you with your issues if I can, and at least give you some ideas and even some meditation techniques that I sometimes give to people. Like at the end, sometimes with some people, I will say, I have this email that I've set up that gives you um, links and information to all the meditations of Osho that I've been using since 1980. And they've been very helpful to me. And I never promote something that I don't know intimately. It has to be my own experience, because that is the right way. And so that's what's happening with that. The other thing that's happening is I am I am currently I'm kind of in a financial challenge right now because my van, which I've had, 1987 van, has needed finally a major resurrection from being so old, and it's cost me over $3,000 right at the time when I've got to pay for my server fee, which is 2,300 on top of that, which, long story short, it could make me very much hand to mouth for a while. And so, because of the things that I need to do to upgrade HogueProphecy.com so that it's eyeball friendly to everybody who has cell phones, it seems like an easy job. It is a massive website that I've been putting all of my articles in since the year 2000. So it's got a few thousand articles in the archive segment, and then the new ones I do. So I need some funds. I'm kind of in need of help to get these things going. And so since Friday, I have started a on my Hogue Prophecy Bulletin free group and my Hogue Prophecy reports subscribers. I've been asking my subscribers to, if they could at this time, in advance of their deadline to resubscribe, just pay again for another year. And then I'll add those 12 months to your subscription renewal date, and so and just into another year. I've done that before with a few people last year, and it's worked really well. So, and so yeah, this is how I make my living. If I were independently wealthy, I wouldn't do that, but I'm just a working poor mystic. So, um, yeah, so you will see the links to for $60 for if you want to have a one donation per annum and have 12 months. And then the other is the automatic payment option where you can get it you can get it's just a small payment like $5 or more each month, and it just keeps going until you want to quit it. And then I will just be sending you the Hogue Prophecy reports, which usually come kind of at the beginning and the end of months. I don't really I can't make it a consistent date because it's dealing with all the things that are changing in our history right now, and all these history changing things sometimes have their own, okay, so I usually try to do one every 2 months. So, so if you have a yes, if you have the ability, you can do the automatic payments, which is just $5 or more, or you can do $60 or more. And some of you can do digits, 3-digit, or even 4-digit donations. If you're able to do that and have a yes for that, that also helps a lot too. So we've got this thing going. So if a lot of you have been watching me here on Paul's show, want to help me continue to do these things, yeah, join. Like I say, if you just want to sample it, just $5. You know, $5 is fine. If a lot of people send $5 really works. I know I like it because it's not causing too much of a burden on you. But the key is there's got to be a volume of people doing, not waiting for somebody else to give $5, but you, only you, to make it. And then if you do that, you put Paul in the memo line. Uh, and we will hope Paul doesn't mind that. Are you okay with that, Paul?
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Sorry, I didn't ask you. So and then I'll know that's guys from the show, guys and gals from the show, and then I will $5. I'll give the whole 8 articles, 3,000 words, fully illustrated, of my most recent Hogue Prophecy report. And I would say it's probably the most important one I've ever done. People have been reading and have been saying it's one of my best. So, okay, that's it. So, thank you, everybody. Thanks for
So
listening to us and
just to
watching us.
remind the audience, the links in the description of this video and all the videos I do with John will take you to his website. So just click that link and sign up for the periodicals and the readings. And John, it was Joanne that I believe she resent the email. So,
Yes, I saw Joanne. I saw it on the top of my computer screen, so it did get through. So I'll be looking at it.
all right. So everybody, thank you for joining and asking the questions and listening. And please share the links so we can grow the channel and make sure that you hit the thumbs up button. And we'll do another show in about 2 weeks. So,
Yep, it'll be a
so
whole different world, just like this one.
yeah. So, John, you need to say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye to everybody.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Bye bye, everybody.